made at Asda on the 2 dates dating back to June 3rd and asked them to investigate. It took 3 weeks for the police to catch up with Hussein. Although he had left a slew of DNA at the murder scene, Danyal's DNA was not on the police database. However, they were able to close in on him because of a familial match which was discovered during the investigation. Danyal's father's DNA was in the system because he had received a past caution. I haven't been able to find out what exactly the caution was for, but he was there. With this information, it took the police only 90 minutes to identify Danyal as their suspect. They were then able to identify Danyal on CCTV, buying the knife, as well as footage of Danyal returning home at around 4 a.m. after the murders, minus his trousers and cradling his hand. The detectives say he probably ditched them because they were covered in blood. If you want to see this clown getting arrested, the video is also available on Patreon. Everyone can see it, you don't have to be a member. It's interesting. After his arrest, police searched Danyal's room at his mother's house. It was there that they found a document titled Agreement. This document was written out like a contract between Danyal and a demon that was named Mighty King Lucifuge Rofakal. Just quickly, and I'm sure you're curious because, well, I was. I went on a bit of a Google hunt and I found some interesting information about this character, Lucifuge. He's mentioned in the Grand Grimoire as the Prime Minister of Hell. He is Lucifer's most loyal servant. His powers are said to be to bring disease and deformity, create earthquakes, and the destruction of sacred deities. His powers also extended over all of the treasures on the earth. So it makes sense why Danyal would want to make this deal with him above any others. Interestingly, Lucifuge, apart from the Grand Grimoire, only appears in one other text, which is the Grimoire of Pope Honorius, written by Pope Honorius III in about the 17th or 18th century. You're welcome. On with the show. This contract was written on what appears to be a tab divider. It sets out a number of things that Danyal would agree to do for this demon. In it, he wrote that he would perform 6 sacrifices every 6 months for as long as he was free and able to do so. He wrote that he would only kill women as a sacrifice. He went on to write that he would simply build a temple to the king and do everything that he promised in return for winning the Mega Millions jackpot, which at that time was £321 million, or 436 million US dollars, or 600 million Australian dollars. He would receive fruitful rewards of wealth and power and would never be suspected of any crimes by police that he would do or had done. The letter was signed in Danyal's blood, and a space had been left for Lucifuge to also sign his name alongside. So confident was Danyal that his plan was working and that this demon would deliver the riches he so desired, that right after he killed Nicole and Bibaa, he went and bought several lottery tickets, 3 of which were folded up and inside the agreement with his demon. Police found a second letter in his bedroom to the same demon, promising sacrifices in return for better luck with the opposite sex. I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but he did not win the lottery, and the police were able to link Hussein with all of the evidence from the murders. I guess the demon didn't like him either. After his arrest at the Wandsworth police station where he was being processed, he acted like a complete moron. Well, I say he acted, I don't know if it was an act. Playing dumb, let's say. He told the officers that he was confused and scared, and he also said that he was autistic. Thankfully, he went through extensive psychiatric analysis and he was declared fit to stand trial. In the video where they're processing him, one of the police officers asked him what had happened to his hand. Danyal asked, with the handcuffs? But he knew exactly what they meant. Then he starts being a smartass, asking the other police officer if this was a formal interview. An absolute prick. I want you to have a listen. This is the audio from the footage of Danyal Hussein's processing at Wandsworth police station.
Do you have any injuries?
Yeah.
The wrists from the cuffs?
No.
Oh. How did that happen? How did that happen?
Sorry?
How did that happen?
Is this the interview?
No, that's a question. The injuries on your fingers. What happened there? Okay, don't worry.
I thought this wasn't an interview.
You don't need to be. The questions are asked to the gentleman that comes into custody.
So you're writing down what I just said.
It's alright, just listen to what
I thought he was supposed to do an official interview before asking me the actual question.
you will be interviewed later.
Recording the information.
So just for clarity, Daniel was acting confused about what they were asking him, but he told them that he had an injury on his hand. They asked him how he did it, and he said, "I thought this wasn't an interview." Let's move on. During his trial, which took place at the Old Bailey, Danyal Hussein offered no evidence on his own behalf, and he didn't testify. The only thing that he did offer through his lawyers was a complete denial. He denied that he committed the crime. He denied that he was at the park. He denied that it was him who could clearly be seen on the CCTV footage to and from the park within the time frame of the murders, and he denied that the CCTV footage from Asda is of him purchasing the knife block with the murder weapon, or that the CCTV of him from the hospital where he sought medical attention for his hand and how he lied about the injury and how he received them was him. The prosecution submitted the photo of Daniel's hand with the stitches where he cut himself. Again, he denied it. A consultant forensic psychiatrist was commissioned by the court to do a full assessment on Daniel. Dr. Ian Cumming confirmed the diagnosis of autistic spectrum disorder. However, because Daniel's defense was that he wasn't present, there was no medical evidence put before the court for mitigation, and he insisted that his defense team not use a psychiatric defense, because if he had, then he would have had to also admit and accept that it was he who had killed the women and that he was there. The jury were made aware of the ASD diagnosis during the trial, but just as the judge remarked, ASD doesn't explain why he committed the crimes, nor why he refused to acknowledge the offences. He knew that he was there, he knew what he did, and he made a very conscious decision to lie about everything that had taken place. During sentencing, the judge said to Danyal Hussein, "Setting a minimum term is not the same as setting your release date. It is only on expiry of the minimum term that you become eligible to be considered for release, and that could only occur if you are no longer at that point a danger to the public." According to UK law, the judge wasn't able to impose a whole life sentence on Daniel because he had not yet reached 21 years of age. Danyal Hussein was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 35 years for the murder of Nicole Smallman, a sentence of life with a minimum of 35 years for the murder of Bibaa Henry, both served concurrently. He received a further sentence of 18 months detention in a young offenders institute for possessing a knife in a public place. He received credit for the 484 days that he was in custody awaiting trial. The judge ordered his laptop, iPad, and the knife, as well as other paraphernalia found at the scene, to be destroyed. Now, as if all of this wasn't bad enough, the family felt as though the police didn't take them seriously when they reported the girls missing. Mina Smallman said that there was a clear lack of urgency in looking for the girls and in investigating their murder. She did go on to say during an interview that she knew exactly why the police were so disinterested. Bibaa was a quote-unquote black woman who lived on a council estate. They immediately prejudged her based on her address. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, or the IOPC, found that a missing persons log had been incorrectly closed and no further inquiries were made, so the investigation didn't progress. Mina said that the on-duty call handler for the police when she called had made an inappropriate and manipulating assertion which led to the cancellation of her missing persons report, saying that his unprofessional comments about the picnic suggested racial profiling, misogyny, or classism. Of course, the IOPC were told by the inspector that there was no racial bias, and instead, that particular weekend was one of the most challenging of their career. 16 missing persons were reported, and undercapacity in the unit caused by the pandemic was the reason for things not happening the way that they were expected to when it came to the investigation of Nicole and Bibaa. Once the bodies of Nicole and Bibaa had been found, an investigation obviously got underway. The police set up a cordon to preserve the scene and any forensic evidence that may have been left there. Police Constable, or PC, Dennis Jaffer, who was 47, and PC Jamie Lewis, 32, were assigned along the cordon with other officers to guard the scene overnight. Their task was to keep away any wild animals or any other contaminants from entering the area. To ensure the integrity of the scene, their duties were to remain at their allotted posts and not leave. Because this was their assigned tasks, they were not in what was known as full barrier forensic clothing. They were not required to enter the scene at any time. Their superior officers had shown them where the bodies were, but they didn't show them the bodies themselves. Basically, there was no reason for them to leave their post or to enter the hedgerow area where the bodies were located. At around 3:30 a.m., Jaffer and Lewis were observed by another officer walking back and forth on the inside of the perimeter of the cordon closest to where the bodies were. They were talking to each other. Lewis approached PC Asprogenus, a more junior officer who had witnessed the two speaking with each other, and he told her that there were two bodies lying in the brush close to where he had been posted. She asked him if the bodies had been covered, and Lewis told her that they hadn't. Around 40 minutes later, the other officer, Jaffer, left his post to go and speak with the junior officer, Asprogenus. He asked her to come with him. She left her post and went over to where Lewis was standing. Lewis then began to shine his flashlight into the area to show Asprogenus where the bodies were. Later on, she told the court that she saw the back of one of the two women. Asprogenus returned to her post immediately. A little later, Jaffer sent Asprogenus a message on a WhatsApp group called COVID CUNTS, which included 4 photos of Nicole and Bibaa in the tree area where they were laying. There were 10 members of that group, including Jaffer. The other people in the group were civilians, not police officers. Another WhatsApp group that the two were part of was called the A-Team. There were around 41 police officers in that group. One particular image was of Lewis's face superimposed onto the photo in a selfie-style image in front of the two girls. Asprogenus was disgusted and she deleted the messages and photos from her camera roll. Somewhere between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m., Lewis and the 2 other officers took a break. It was during this time that Jaffer showed Lewis a photo on his phone of Nicole and Bibaa lying in the hedgerow. Jaffer was the mentor of a probationary officer from Forest Gate Police Station, and he also showed her that image. She was shocked and disgusted, and she told Jaffer that the images were inappropriate. Lewis also showed photos to another female officer. One can only wonder why these 2 idiots were showing only female officers the photos. Between 3:46 and 9:07 a.m., the 2 officers sent messages to the WhatsApp groups including images where Nicole and Bibaa were identifiable and Bibaa's back was exposed and visible. Lewis says that he was living the Wembley dream after he posted a news article about the murders to the WhatsApp group with a picture of the park and then commented, "Unfortunately, I'm sat next to 2 dead birds full of stab wounds." Jaffer said to his friends group, "I'm here now, we'll try to take pictures of the 2 dead birds," and later followed up with an image of Nicole and Bibaa saying, "This is my view now." At around 7 a.m, he offered to send images of the 2 women to one of his close friends, not a police officer, but gave weird and incorrect information about the murders. He said to his friend, both stabbed to death in broad daylight and dragged under trees. One is 14 and the other is 20. She was pregnant.